the same. It's just a better software.
On yours, right? Not theirs.
Yeah, on the Fortis. Yeah. So the Fortis is kind of their high end, and then the Dimension is kind of like more their kind of their office series. So you know, if you were going to print industrial every day, you need to process a lot of files, then you go with the Fortis. But if you are just an engineer and you're doing it out of your home or a small office, the Dimension is a great machine, very capable.
Okay. Well, and obviously Jay thinks so as well. He talks about the things it makes out of plastic. I guess he has a CNC or some other type of device to do things out of metal. He talks about that a little bit, but this video will be available in the show notes. It's out on YouTube. Kind of talks about how the Next Engine is used, which is an inexpensive 3D scanner. It's what I use. It costs about $3,500 to get the HD version, but then you have to add software. So by the time you're done, it's like $7,500 to $10,000. But it is fairly capable for a 3D scanner. All right, let's go on right into the first item, and that is a PowerPoint 3D printer. Yeah, that should make Microsoft happy. Missouri teacher is building a unique printer. Thank you, Eddie, for reporting this. But there it is, off to the right-hand side. Yes, I want one of those. In fact, if you looked at my little title on this, yeah, Brad Hill, they've got you beat. Little RP, meet the micro SLA. So we do have Brad in the background there. Brad, you want to speak up a little bit about this? Anything unique here, or is it just minimum or microizing? Yeah, there's a good word for you. Are they just miniaturizing what you've been doing already?
I knew this day would come. It's pretty similar to the. You ever seen the Luma Pocket, Luma Fold? Luma Pocket was a SLA printer that kind of pretty much identical. So I think they kind of go. I mean, it's a top-down printer, and those can be as simple as you want to make them.
Well, obviously, if you look at it, the square footage that's required in order to do this is obviously as much or more than your little RP, and obviously you can only print little tiny things. But
I mean,
one of the things that I know,
it's not $20 because you still need to buy a projector, right?
Right. Yeah.
And often the projectors. I mean, I think if somebody just wants to play around, I think top down is a really cool way to do it. Like you can even repurpose a 3D printer. Like all you really need is like a Z stage, something to just go up and down into the water, or not water, resin in this case. So you could even play around with. But yeah, I mean, I think if somebody, if it's something they want to play with. I mean, I think a lot of people that might, just like people that get into normal FDM printing, people get into it, and there's a certain percentage of people who it's not going to maintain their interest. So, like, if they think they might want to play with SLA, and this is a good way for them to get used to, handling the material and curing and washing, and figure out if it's something that something they're not turned off by, and then maybe they could always reuse that projector later for a more serious SLA printer.
For watching movies like I do. Well, on this thing, it looks like there's some machine components here. So, 20, I guess, is the raw materials, but to find somebody who can either machine these, I don't know. Do they look machined? They do. To me, they look like they're machine components. Somebody had to cut them out. And that's not cheap. Well, I mean, it's not expensive, but obviously $20 seems to be. Well, what do they got here? So they have some L brackets. Yeah, here's your aluminum sheet metals. So unless you've got a shop, which they are in a school, obviously this would probably make a good or excellent.
Well, the nice thing is that there aren't really any mechanical forces involved here. So I mean, you can make it out of anything. Make a 2x4 with a drawer slide, or it wouldn't really matter. I mean, it doesn't have to be a 2x4. One thing that people want to look at top-down printers. I always recommend there's one called the Sedgwick 3D, and it's actually one of the printers that got me interested in SLA. It's a top-down, all laser cut wood. I think it's an open source design too, so it's pretty, it would be a much more simple printer to build and operate.
So what do you think of them using PowerPoint presentation? Does that surprise you?
You can use anything, I guess. It's like, it's kind of weird, yeah. I don't know that you could.
Well, I mean, all they're doing really is using PowerPoint to present a bunch of slice images, right, which are black and white. So they could have used maybe even if they wanted to simplify this. I guess there's built into the actual Windows environment a slideshow that you can step through. I mean, that would work just as well.
I mean, I would say one of the problems with using. I mean, obviously it's working for what they want to use. Especially if they're using like a magnifying glass to focus the image. Like one of the problems that we have with Little RP is that we focus the image on such a small area that the cure times are quite low. And this would probably have even quicker cure times, just because it's if you have the X and Y dimension, you quarter the cure time. And so one of the downsides of that is you sort of need fairly accurate timing with the projecting the different image slices, and I don't know if PowerPoint is a great tool for that.
Yeah, I think in this case it sounds like it's mostly an educational project, and so probably the coolest part about PowerPoint is the fact that you could kind of take a simple object in the beginning, start your projection essentially, and kind of show how the slicing process works at a fundamental level. So so you can see exactly how that's a cross section of the model, and you're stepping through it, and here's how simple it is, breaking it down to its basically fundamental counterparts.
Yeah,
and there's probably another thing that goes along with it. A lot of schools have a Microsoft Office. What do you call it, enterprise or volume license. And the other thing is that PowerPoint does allow you to time each one of your slides. So that may be a reason for doing it as well. Okay, we're going to get off of this, but here's a final result. I don't know if that's what they were printing, but yeah, here's a little mini
chess set.
Micro chess sets.
It's cool. I approve.
Okay, we got the Brad Hill approval. Okay, so move on, Chris, to your item.
All right, so this one I thought was pretty interesting. Woke up to this morning, and this is a China's plan for 400,000 elementary schools in China. I mean, are going to be provided with 3D printers. They have a plan. So the Chinese government has approved a new policy which states that the government will provide over 400,000 elementary schools in the nation with 3D printers. Just to, understand the scale of that. I mean, 400,000 schools. And just, realizing how this is going to shape not just the economy, not just the Chinese economy, but the worldwide economy, how it's going to the implications of manufacturing. These future generations. 400,000 schools. Even if there was only 20 kids a class per year, you just think about those numbers. How many kids are going to be exposed to 3D printing technology just within the next few years? So XYZ, a big company.
Yeah, we did a small brief interview with them when we were at CES, and they kind of went through all of their printers that they are going to be releasing.
So
you brought this up.
Yeah, they're on the hook for between 100 and 120,000 3D printers just this year alone. So pretty big step. And like I said, I think it's really going to shape, future generations of technology in general. We're going to see a lot of really bright people in China. There already are so many bright people all around the world, and this is just going to help kind of move the whole thing along, keep going, move us into the future. So pretty exciting.
Well, if you remember, we talked about education or 3D in education, I don't know, probably, gosh, about 6 months ago. And we talked about what Europe's doing as well as Canada. It was too bad we couldn't get somebody actually from Asia or especially mainland China. And I know that we've talked about a lot of things going on in China. So this is just another, they're looking at the future, and obviously they're going to be pushing money. XYZ obviously is going to benefit from this, but they've got a great inexpensive printer. And like I mentioned, we're going to have Natalie come on and talk about Simplified 3D, and there's a reason for that, and we'll wait till then. So on to my next item. And so you may have seen this in the news. There is what do they call it? Jump to this. Caltech has done a new camera chip, provides super fine 3D resolution. So I'm going to kind of geek out a little bit here. I don't know. Should I use that term, Brad? Geek out?
Yeah.
Okay. But, one of the things is that if you take a look at this penny, that obviously doesn't look like a very good scan. But if you look into how they went about doing this, imagine, are both of you familiar with Lidar? We've had some surveyors on it who use it, but essentially it's using laser transmissions and then either measuring the time that it comes back or the phase difference to identify the depth of that laser pulse. And if you use mirrors, you can scan that laser pulse into an image device so that it knows where it's at in physical space, x, y, and then either the phase or the time of flight is sent back to the imager to determine its depth. Well, imagine doing that but no mirrors. In fact, what they say here is that they've essentially put 16 LiDARs on a chip. I think it's 16, or a 4x4 matrix, I think. So this is one of the reasons why you have the crude image here, because you've only got 16 elements. But they were able to move it around, and then here's off to its side to pick up the depth information. Now this is at, I think, a ½ meter that they were able to discern the resolution of the penny. So imagine if we scaled this, what we can do. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And like I said, I'm going to geek out a little bit. And I actually went out to the person who wrote a paper on this. Yeah, the active area is 300 microns by 300 microns, and yeah, 16 coherent pixels. But let's see. I have a little block diagram here. So this is how this thing works. So essentially, it can either be transmissive or reflective. Reflective is what you've seen before with these LiDAR machines. You essentially send a laser beam out and then reflect the light back. But in this case, they run it through a splitter, through a collimator, and is that collimator or collimeter? I think it's Brad,
no idea.
Collimator?
Collimator. They colaminate.
All right. I think it's collimator, so for anybody who's out there and wants to correct me, go ahead. Rip me apart. Okay, so on that note, so they run it through this, and then they run it through a grating coupler, and this is what you're seeing here, and then they also split the beam off, run it into 16, again, 16 little channels. So imagine a IC that has little small conduits, if you're familiar with fiber, or that they use for lasers. Imagine 16 of these on a chip. They split it off, and then they sum these together. And the way that lasers work, because they're coherent, the light source, as you can see down here in the bottom of the image, is the sine wave or sinusoidal variances between the two. And if you compare them, notice how you have a phase shift. So this is what they're looking at, is this phase shift. So if you're familiar with electronics and RF energy, it's very similar, even audio. You can measure that time difference by measuring the phase, and that's what they're doing here. And then they convert it into electrical signal that determines not only the amplitude, but also, meaning the light amplitude, but also the distance. And that's your depth information. Pretty cool, huh?
Very interesting. A lot of smart people working on stuff like this.
Oh yeah, it's all over the place, and so we'll see what The problem with these unique things is that they work really, really well at this level, but trying to scale up has always been an issue. So we'll see, if they can scale this up. But I was
I
hoping.
mean, just look at the where CMOS sensors or your camera's sensor on digital cameras. They had to start somewhere, and I remember when digital cameras were first getting consumer, coming onto the consumer market, and it was like really crappy quality. I had one of those, what did I have? I had a Casio, I think. I had an Apple. We had like one of the Apple ones.
Oh, I had the first Apple.
And it was
Quick Take 100.
And it was crap compared to like regular photos, and people were like, why would you even want that? And I'm like, well, because then I can pull a photo right onto my computer really fast, and they're like, but scanners were really popular at the time, and they were a lot better than, but this was like a camera, and you could put your image right, but it was really crappy quality. Well, this is probably the same thing. It's like, it's really crappy quality today, but in a year from now, they'll already be at like 20 megapixels or something. It's just crazy.
I don't think so. The thing is that in the way in designing chips, we could do that at a later issue. You have substrates, and they use microlithography in order to etch the chips. Here, you're physically laying. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but you're actually creating fiber optics and laying them on the chip as well. So there's a little more complication in doing this, which is probably why they could only do 16. But yeah. Things do change,
and that's how auxiliary technologies are born. Like that little engineering problem right there that you just you're mentioning there is like, that's a perfect excuse to make some new technology that could spin off some other new sensor in the future that invents a whole other industry. Who knows? So
who knows?
Who knows? It's
okay, Chris.
So fast. Okay. My next item was, obviously, we've been following the Made in Space guys for a little while. This one came from NASA on NASA's Marshall Center YouTube channel, and they are doing an unboxing of the space parts that they made up on the space station that we've been following. So pretty interesting.
I wonder what the shipping cost was for that.
I don't know, and they didn't mention in the article or in the description exactly like how they got the stuff back, but I guess on maybe on the refueling when they bring supplies up, they obviously are docking with the Dragon or whatever it is, and then they must send stuff back, like poop. They probably send poop. And stuff.
Jettison that out.
You think so?
Oh.
That's where we see meteorites, little brown meteors.
Okay.
So yeah, pretty interesting. So the wrench that they have all kinds of parts they've been printing. A lot of them for calibration, like to see what the physical boundaries of printing are. Obviously, because you're in microgravity, you maybe aren't restricted to overhangs like you are here on in a Earth's gravity. So they printed some interesting prints. He mentions them. He just goes through and he's kind of documenting them, and then they open the wrench. Well, they actually don't open the wrench, but they show the wrench. It's in a package, but they're going to, the next step, I guess, is they've printed all of these. There's the wrench, spanner wrench, the famous spanner wrench. So they've already printed these, obviously, on Earth, probably many times over, and they've taken photographs for research purposes of the ones on Earth, along with 3D scanning data. They've 3D scanned everything, to kind of like at a real high quality level. And then, so they're going to do the same thing very carefully with these from space to kind of see what the differences are. So they're using the ground as control, and then these are the lab samples that they're using. So they're kind of going through and Going to see what the differences are between printing in space versus printing on Earth, and yeah, and see see what the differences are. So pretty cool.
So there's another YouTube channel, Nerdgasm, I think. I don't remember the name of it. It's an interesting character, I'll say the least. But what he did is he actually 3D printed that particular part out in PLA and ABS and actually tested that wrench. As you mentioned, that wrench you can 3D print completely, and then you can break it apart, and it will act just like a ratchet, except it's gravity fed. So it's interesting how it worked in space, since gravity is not an issue, or is an issue there, depending on how you look at it. And so he used that to tighten the terminals on his battery in his car. And he found that it did an okay job for the first couple of times, especially the PLA. I think it worked once, and then it started to tear up the teeth inside. The ABS had much better results. So, not only was it a tool for show, but it actually had a use when they were up there.
Yeah, I could see there's a reason why wrenches are made out of metal and not plastic.
Well, who knows? Maybe a carbon fiber. But yeah, totally agree with you. CNC machines aren't going away anytime soon. Casting isn't going to go away anytime soon either. All right, so on to my next item. I'm going to pick on MakerBot. And the reason I'm going to pick on MakerBot is I just read a business article. It was actually last month, but this is going to be part of our 3D Scanner Darkly section on 3D scanning. They have put in 2 patents which I think are extremely vague, and one of them is essentially, and if you go through there you can read it, they're both in the show notes, but essentially what they're saying is we are going to patent a technique, and I'm wondering if NextEngine would have something to say about this, in how to determine by using color grading if you have a calibrated system. And I'm thinking, not only was a lot of this in the open source world before MakerBot got a hold of it, but NextEngine does a lot of similar things. So they have not been awarded this patent, but if you're familiar with the patent system, you can spend, I think it's like $5,000. Why do I know? Because I'm in the process of doing it myself. And you can essentially hang on to a patent and use patent pending, which then they can go after other people to prevent them from coming out with similar technologies. So, I had my opinions about MakerBot, even though I own a replicator too, how they've taken from the open source community and then filed patents on it, and to me this seems to be an obvious case of that, where they're taking things that are already out there and establishing a patent. And I don't think that's really what the patent system is for.
Well, I think it just shows you how flawed and how broken our current patent system is. I don't know the solution to these problems, but I do know that there are a lot of problems. When we've talked about this before, when it costs $1 million on average to defend even a good patent, $1 million on average, who of the Joe Schmo general public can even afford to defend a patent? It's not very many people that have $1 million.
And then the way that the patent system is set up now, you can pretty much protect yourself. I can't remember the naming of it, but there's 2 directions you can go. One of them is less expensive, like I said, $2,000 to $5,000, and that pretty much sets you up to get a patent, interim patent, before you actually even go through the process of
getting a real one
looked at. So it's like, they're protecting you even before you get out the gate, which I think is a good thing for some people, but when others start to abuse that by just putting a twist on it or realizing somebody hasn't filed a patent for something. So we're in a really precarious situation, because with the open source market that Brad is part of, a lot of people discuss ideas, and all it takes is a troll to go through there, find something, and next thing you know, they've got a patent, and then that open source market, if somebody wanted to come to the market with it, they're slapped with a patent infringement, and that particular product dies. So I've got some real issues with this, but at the same time, maybe we should look at the open source environment in using them for patents. Instead of just one office, maybe it should be a resource that many people can go and say, hey, I've been using that for a year now. Give me some say in it, or I think that's an open source instead of capturing these things like that. Oh well.
Yeah, well, I
I'll get
think
off
I
on-
think that another solution that I've heard posed is with intellectual property is having intellectual property protected between, like, if you were a machine creator or a technology creator and you owned intellectual property, that you protect it by releasing it only to other people that are agreeing not to break it open, and if they are, then they would be liable for damages. So, if you had a machine that you wanted to remain protected, then you would only sell it to people that had signed some sort of agreement with you, and if they breached that agreement, then they might be liable for damages. But the way that the current patent system is set up, I just don't see any way to no easy solution for it. I mean,
Well,
and not only is it $1 million on average to defend even a good patent, it's between $25,000 and $40,000 on average to file a decent patent. And yeah, two to 5,000 just to get the ball rolling. But
but
who does
it's
this really benefit?
that ball rolling that puts a lot of protection on something that prevents somebody else. Well, like you said, this could be a discussion on its own. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
do a
We
later
have
roundtable
done many
discussion.
shows. Yeah.
Brad, do you want to chime in on this, or Brad?
I don't know. I mean, it's good and bad. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Okay, well,
I mean,
on that note,
obviously we
I'm
need
going to
some
introduce Natalie. She is I'm assuming, the marketing director from Simplified 3D, and she's, can you hear me? Yes, you're nodding your head. Go ahead and speak for me, so make sure. I can't hear you, though. Not
No,
hearing you. See if you're muted. Well, I'll tell you what, Natalie, why don't you, actually, let's see, you are muted. There. Go ahead and talk now. No, still can't hear you. Go up and, if you're familiar with Google Hangouts, up on top there's a little, what do you want to call it, settings. Looks like a little
cog.
gear. If you click
Okay,
on
how about
that,
now?
you can... Oh, here
We
you
got
now.
ya.
Great.
All right, sorry, I had to toggle a few things.
No worries. No
Sorry
worries.
about
You're
that.
ahead of us. Here we were trying to guide you through it, and you were probably 10 steps ahead of us. So I'm glad you...
No, sometimes you're working with one setting, something gets flipped off, and you have to go kind of readjust it.
Totally.
Yeah, I totally understand that. So if I understand correctly, you're the marketing director for Simplified 3D. Was that correct?
Yes, I'm the digital marketing manager here, and it's great to be on the show today.
Well, really appreciate it. I sometimes get to... I actually emailed them last week to be on, because I stay up to like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to prepare for this show at 9:30. So obviously I'm a little nuts. And I saw this release like at midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning last Thursday about FlashForge. So I thought, hey, come on and talk about it, because both Chris and I've been using Simplified 3D for almost 2 years now, and I think Chris has just come aboard with Simplified 3D.
It's driving my Taz right now.
Great, that's great to see.
I'm using
In
it.
fact,
I love it.
have-
I love it. I love it. I've been a matter control person for a while, and I'm loving the Simplify 3D.
A lot of people don't realize, even though there's a small cost, you did pay money for your printer as well. Well, the important news, and we'll get right to you because I know you have better things to do than just hang out with us, but one is the big FlashForge deal. How did that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really excited about our partnership with FlashForge USA. It's just announced last week, but it's been in the works for a long time. Definitely props to the team over there. They've been wonderful to work with all the way through. And we know they've got some great machines out there. We were so excited to partner with them to work with some of their machines. So now we have a bundle where a user would buy their machine, and they get the Simplify 3D software actually in the box. So what we are working for with FlashForge, with their product bundles, is to ensure a better user experience for their customers. So when they open up that box, they unpack their printer, they've got the software right there, and they can get printing more quickly and with higher quality. And so that was something that both of the companies we really share as a mission, to help our users have higher quality prints and a faster startup time. So we were really excited to get that going.
Well, one of the things that I looked in, gosh, over a year ago, is that FlashForge, at least on Amazon, was one of the more reasonably priced printers. But the thing that kept coming out more and more in the comments was, great reasonably priced printer for what you get for the money, except the slicer sucks. I guess that's the most emphatic word I can come up with. And then I found out that Simplified 3D provided it, so I thought, wow, I've already got Simplified 3D. I might look into this. And then they came out with their new dual extruder FlashForge, I think, earlier or in 2014, around Christmas time, and I was really hoping to get one. And then I've heard that the Dremel system is based upon a FlashForge. So in saying that, is the Dremel also under this umbrella, or are they still using their own proprietary slicer?
As far as I know, there's not a partnership in place. Really just FlashForge USA at this point. We have a lot of other partners that we work with across the world, and a lot of those agreements are always in process. What we're trying to do is make it so there's a universal operating system for your printer. So when you get it, it's that complete package, and you don't have to worry about, oh, which slicer do I use? Do I go online and try to find something? It's already all there, bundled up for you. So there's that.
And I checked out this morning, right on the 3D printing subreddit. I'm always on Reddit checking out this 3D printing subreddit. That's where I like to lurk. And I noticed Simplify 3D was in the mentionings because they have their own subreddit now. Because there's one of the things I really love about the software is you guys are updating it pretty regularly to include all the new printers. I just got myself a LulzBot Mini after I've been printing on my TAS now for a few months and loved it so much, but I had to check out the Mini, so I got a Mini in the mail on Monday. I was up and running in about 5 minutes, but the Simplify 3D hasn't made it. I mean, apparently it's on the supported list, but it's not like it's not quite a plug and play situation with Simplify 3D yet. But I'm sure it will be pretty soon because you guys are always adding new printer. It seems like every day I see a new printer getting added to your website.
Absolutely. And if there are issues, there's that great support@simplify3d.com email that we always direct people to. Those guys are amazing. I work here in the office with them, so I can personally attest to that. And they can help you with whatever configuration you might need to work. So if it's not working for you really simply and easily out of the box, shoot them an email and they'll be able to help you get that all squared away.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, as mentioned in my email, Clayton said that he might have something else to kind of spring on us. So I've got a little drum roll going.
Yeah.
What do you have to spring on us?
So I can't spill the beans just yet on our next release. Don't want to spoil the surprise for everybody, but I can tell you that we have a lot of really great stuff in the works. I know you mentioned earlier going on Reddit, going on forums. We have been watching, we have been listening. We're always listening to our users and compiling the feature requests that we think should go into the software. And the majority of our updates in the past, as you've seen, they've been about 3 or 4 months apart. So the timing is coming up here pretty soon for something really big. So I can't tell you all what's coming, but I can tell you that we've been listening to a lot of user feedback. We're working on a lot of great stuff, and it's coming to you very soon. And what I'm really hoping, Mike, is that when that does happen, that we'd be able to come back on the show and kind of share some of the details there. But we're just not quite ready to share it with the world yet. But stay tuned because we'll have more information on that coming very soon.
Well,
so, Mike, an upgrade. Are upgrades or updates free with Simplify 3D for our users?
Right. So for existing users, it's completely free.
Okay. So is it a lifetime upgrade process, so you buy it once and
that's how it's set up now. So you go and you buy your license one time, and then as we roll out upgrades every 3 or 4 months, you have to go and click a button in the software to get those new that new version, but it is free.
And the price again?
$149 USD.
Okay, $149.
It's a sweet deal for a piece of software. I like software that's $149.
Yeah. Well, I like it a lot. I can say that much.
Now, the important thing on this is that a lot of times people think, especially in the 3D market, because there's so many good open source tools, that, well, why do I need to pay for a slicer? Well, one of the reasons is you're paying for the people behind it, and I have to say, and I have to agree with Natalie, that the updates are always coming. They're very responsive, and you can see that they put some intuitive thinking into this. So I'm going to kind of guess on what your new features are going to be. The big thing right now is Wi-Fi or network-based printing. So I have this suspicion that maybe that might be the next. See if we can get a tell. Huh?
No, I got to keep my poker face on, guys. I can't give anything away today.
Put your shades on. Put your shades on.
Well, thank you, Natalie, for coming on.
Yeah, I
and,
really appreciate it.
Hats off. Now I'm really going to think about getting a Flash Forge now that you're behind it. And as Chris has said, I was a little surprised that he said, yeah, I'm working with Simplified 3D. So we're converting people.
Awesome. That's great.
I think I might know what it is. It's a demo version.
A demo version. What's a demo version?
Brad wants a demo version.
No. That's what everybody always wants, because there's no demo. It's like you either buy it or you don't use it.
Well, we're working on ways to allow people to understand what all they're getting before they get it. In the past, when we've tried to do trial versions, we find that a lot of people want to use it for free, but we're still going to support you like you're paying for it. So the issue becomes you don't want to have someone having a lackluster support experience while they're on a trial version. So that's how I've always heard it explained in the past. But in the new release, you'll see a lot of really, really cool features, but not at liberty to say today what they are.
Brad, I have the answer for you. Just go out and buy a Flash Forge printer. It's free with it.
Yeah, there you go. I actually bought Simplify 3D a while ago, so.
There you go. We've got 3 people here converting you one at a time. That'll be your new motto.
Well, when you're doing this every day, I mean, what's $150 to? And
I'd like to think that I complained loud enough that I'm the reason they put in the print islands non-sequentially option.
Yep. Well, okay, Brad, we'll give you that credit. All right. Well, we'll let Natalie go off, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to our next item.
Okay.
So again, thank
you
Natalie,
guys.
And
all right.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Take care. Bye bye.
All right. So next item. Well, it's back into the virtual world for me. This is our interactive 3D corner, or VR corner in a round room, as I call it, because it is a little bit crazy right now. So let me go back to my desktop. Now we won't cover that yet. I'll just stick on my screen here for a moment. I'm going to rant a little bit. One, VR currently, the big people are obviously, not occipital, obviously, occipital will be, but Oculus Rift, the DK1 and now the DK2, also the Gear VR by Samsung, but there's supposedly a slew of other headsets coming out. What are the names of them? One of them I backed on, where are we at here?
Cast AR.
And also Immersion VR, which is the one I did an interview at CES. It's kind of funny. I think Immersion VR has gotten a lot of, what do you want to call it? Screen time from their CES intro, and I haven't heard back. They were supposed to have a developer system that I'm part of, but I haven't heard back on that. The same thing with the Air VR. It's kind of the same thing, is that a lot of people are coming out with these things, going out to Kickstarter, and then they kind of drop off the radar. So I hope that's not a bad note. I just hope that they're being swamped with popularity, and not the fact is that maybe it's a little underwhelming. I'm actually anxious to find or use either of these, because I want to redesign it to support the iPhone with, as I've talked about in the past, the structure sensor to do environment awareness. But it's not going fast enough for me. Maybe I'm just a little too impatient. But there is one out there that I just found called, how would you pronounce this? Homido? Homido? Who knows?
Homido.
Brad, how would you pronounce that? Homido?
I don't know.
These people just. This looks just
You know,
like an Oculus Rift.
yeah. Well, I mean, they all look kind of like the Oculus Rift. You have,
A
in these
headset.
cases, you have to put the phone somewhere. You've got little magnifying glasses, and then you got a place to put around your face. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like
It's pretty simple. You're
a
right.
tablet. And that's why a lot of people were so angry with Apple in patenting some of the things with their screens, because it's just, how can you make a phone differently? It's a flat piece of glass that you put your fingers on. Oh well. But yes, the nice thing about this, notice the knurled knobs there. That allows you to adjust the distance the optics are from the eyes, so you don't have to put different. Scratch that, to the interocular. That's the distance here. It allows you to move it in and out so that it matches the pupil area of your eyes. But yes, there are cups built into this one, like the Oculus Rift, that you replaced if you're near or farsighted, so you change the magnification. And then your phone slips in the back of it. So what I like to do with this, and again, it says 69 euros. I think that it's equivalent. You can get this on Amazon on April 16th for like $72. But I want to replace the front of this unit so that I can put the Neoti mount case and the iPhone directly on it with the sensor. I have some ideas on how I'm going to approach that. But yeah, just there's several of them out there. I've got an inexpensive Chinese-made version that is very, I'll just use the word cheap, that I've been playing with. I use this new technology called elastic rubber. I think another name is a rubber band to hold it in place. Yeah, so that it doesn't fall out. But yeah, I'm using a lot of new technologies in order to
Solutions.
high-tech stuff. Yeah, but that's it. Other than one other area, and I've had Bryan, who's out with a cold right now, and he wrote back to me and wanted to kind of complain. He bought in early with the Google Tango. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but essentially it is a tablet that has depth sensors built into it, and there's a lot of hype when it came out. You know, something else that they did that had a lot of hype but kind of died out really quickly. What was that? Google Glass? But he kind of feels the same thing. They came out, it was like $1,500. You can now buy it if you go out to their website. I just got an email, hey, get it again for like $7.99. So they immediately plunged the price. Obviously, he's a little angry with that because he bought it at the $1,500, and this was like 2 or 3 months ago. The development kit is very poor. What else did he say? Actually, he said he paid $1,000 for it, so now I think it's like $4.99 that you can buy it. Laggy buggy developer kit. He was trying to create a point cloud animation recorder. He uses point cloud animations from like the Connect 2 to create videos, and they're kind of cool. One day, maybe next show, I'll have a demo of it. So literally you have dancing point clouds, so it's kind of neat what he's planning to do. So that's what he was hoping to use this for. And then he says that the actual developer community started building some things, and then they kind of closed down that, so you can't even get at some of that stuff. So he's been very disappointed with this, and yeah, is having some problems. So he's also working with 360 and using one camera and a Nodal Ninja 4. He's also working with the Blackmagic 4K camera to do something similar. So he's toying around with, obviously, the full 360 immersion. If you don't remember, we've had Bryan on several times. He's kind of filled in when Chris was at one of his, I think you were in training on that week. So he's been a good person for a good source of a lot of VR stuff that's going out there. So he's a little disappointed in the Tango, and I'm probably going to pass up, even though it's half the price now. I don't think it's really going anywhere, which is kind of sad. Google's got all this money, but they seem to throw it at things and then kill it really quick. And you know, you got to be in for the long haul. You guys want to chime in on this, or you want me to move right on to the next item?
Let's move along.
All right. The next item I have was going to be 3D in medicine, but I'm going to skip that And then we're going to go right into Resin Heaven, which is our little section for Brad. But I kind of chose the topic today. And let's see if I can find it. Well, it's essentially, you wanted to bring it up, and that is Autodesk pouring money into Carbon 3D, Chris. So why don't you kind of bring that up, and then we'll have Brad chime in on it. So what do you think about this? Autodesk, what was it,
10 million.
Or 10 million? That's a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So here on 3dprintingindustry.com, you can look at the article. You can read along. Here's the source. According to 3D Printing Industry, Autodesk pours 10 million into Carbon 3D's ultra-fast 3D printing technology. They kind of do talk about this oxygenated permeable membrane as the key component to the speed and layerless technology, which they call clip technology. So the money apparently is coming out of the Spark Investment Fund, which launched last year, and yep. So they are using. They have successfully raised 10 million. Man, I would like to be part of that.
Yeah. Well, that's. I've got a couple of points on it. Carbon 3D, in my opinion, was a little bit of a slick production to find out that they were been backed by Autodesk, which I felt it was more for people just starting out, not to back something that's already has other venture capitalists. But I guess it's Autodesk money; they can do what they want with it. But yeah, I did think it was more for entrepreneurs just getting started with an idea instead of something that becomes more of a venture capitalist investment. But what do I know? Brad, you want to chime in on this? You think it's a good idea for Autodesk to get involved? In fact, I think at the end of this article they kind of talk about, do these people understand that they've got investments, large investments from a large company, and that could be possibly, what do you want to call it, large percentage interest in your company now, and are they going to start vocalizing this and influencing what you do with it? I don't know. Brad?
I think as long as they don't want their money back, it's a good investment. I don't know. Like we were just talking about, Form Labs probably still hasn't even turned a profit from all their venture capital, and it seems like a bit more of a commercially palatable product. I mean, the Carbon, there's a lot of risk. I mean, I think that Autodesk is doing a lot of. I don't think they're looking at getting this money back. It's they're trying to sort of establish themselves as a player in this market, and I think their software is always going to be their bread and butter. I mean, it's the Spark Investment Fund, I think you were saying. I mean, I think it's just more kind of a little philanthropic. 10 million's a lot to be philanthropic with, though. But so I wouldn't mind that. I don't know. Carbon 3D. We got like 3 videos on a YouTube account. I mean, I'm still waiting for more.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm a little concerned too, but as Chris alluded to, and from what I've read about it, because I've also applied for the Spark initiative, it does seem like, because maybe I'm just crying in my soup, they didn't want to back my idea, but maybe they're looking at things that already have finished prototypes, not just looking at ideas. Obviously, even though there's not a lot yet, they did show something. How much will it cost? Will it be available? When? There's still a lot of ifs on this, but it has, what do you call it when you destabilize the market, Chris? There's a term for it, and obviously they've done that here. They've got the big boys looking at it. I'm sorry?
Disruptive? Or?
Yeah, disruptive technology.
Yeah, so this is what this is. It's a disruptive technology. Obviously, it got a lot of news. If they can actually come through with the print performance and the accuracy, then we've got a disruptive technology that people like Stratasys and 3D Labs,
3D Systems.
3DS. we'll have some concerns about, and Autodesk is really trying to push forward. As mentioned, I talked to they call him a 3D print scientist. He was part of the panel that we did at South by Southwest. So they're really investing in brain power as well as money to try and do something to change the way we look at 3D printing. And obviously, with their software, they're doing it as well. All right, Chris, you want the last word on this?
Well, I'm just waiting for, like Brad was saying, just a few more videos on the website to kind of show it off. But yeah, until then, I don't think that it's really definitive. But yeah, I mean, you're right. You're totally right. It does have the potential to be truly disruptive technology, as we're seeing almost every day in this industry. So.
I mean, they must be privy to some information, obviously, that we don't have. But it's like, I think Carbon 3D has like $51 million now. I mean, it's like, what are they making?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's what somebody else said, that they've got a lot of money in this. So hopefully they'll move it forward and we'll actually benefit from a lower cost printer. But I don't know. Okay, so on that note, let's kind of go on to the next item. Chris, I'm going to give you the floor with the Print Whisperer, and then I'll come back to the digital
Print
toolbox.
Whisperer.
The Print
So a few weeks ago,
with Chris.
that Print Whisperer. So a few weeks ago, we went through what happens if your nylon you're having problems, bubbles and steam, or PLA. You can have problems, artifacts in your prints. And a lot of those are due to the fact that PLA, nylon, in fact, most of the thermoplastics that you print with are hygroscopic, so they will absorb water out of the ambient air. So any moisture that's in the air will be absorbed into, especially nylon is especially, they call it hydrophobic or hygroscopic. And so a few weeks ago we covered you can buy an easy bake oven, go down to Walmart or one of your marts, buy an easy bake oven, throw your filament in there on low. You can cook it for like 10 hours overnight. You can bake it. Keep a smoke alarm nearby, obviously, for safety reasons. And then it'll bake the moisture out of the material, making it usable again in your printer. But that's a solution for if your material's already absorbed the moisture. But what I like to do, or what I'm starting to do now, is to avoid moisture contaminating my filament from the very beginning. So usually the filaments nowadays, especially nylon from Talman, or most of the high quality filaments, will come packaged up in a bag, air sealed, with a desiccant packet like silica gel or bentonite clay or some other desiccant in there. But once you've opened it, what do you do with your filament? Well, some people have recommended putting the filament in like a plastic thing with rice is a low cost, because rice is somewhat desiccant, but I much prefer to go kind of like the more professional route. And for about $20, you can go on Amazon and you can buy this little EvaDry renewable E-333 wireless mini dehumidifier. And it basically has a desiccant pack in it that I believe is reusable. And you can actually put this in your plastic bin that you're storing your filament in. So if you have one filament bin, you could put one. If you're really crazy, you could do 2 of them in there. Or you could just do silica. You could buy a pack of silica gel packets online too. That's another method. But this is kind of a highly reviewed mini dehumidifier that you could just stick on the sidewall of your little plastic bins, and then keep your filaments organized in a plastic bin. So you might have one plastic bin for PLA, one for ABS, one for nylon, and the more susceptible ones, you definitely want to keep one of these or some sort of desiccant, because this will just keep the moisture off, and it'll make your prints come out cleaner and make the filament work better for you.
Wow, and let's see, what's the price on that? 10. Oh, that's not bad.
$20 delivered.
What's the square footage that it will dehumidify?
They say that you can use this even with a you can use it even for like a closet. It doesn't really have a square footage that's rated at. I don't think like a. Oh yeah, here it is. Area up to 333 cubic feet.
I mean, does it say how many? I mean, I was looking at these originally, and it seemed like that these portable units didn't really have that much desiccant in them.
Yeah. So this one is like I said, highly reviewed. I haven't used it like long term, but I will let you. I guess I'll report back. But either way, the idea is find a solution to get your moisture out of wherever you're storing your filament. I mean, you can buy just desiccant packets either from Uline, or if you just go into your Amazon, you could just type in or anywhere online, and you can buy silica gel packets. Would be another solution.
So,
but the idea, yeah, go ahead.
Good. I'll add a couple things. So I looked at this a while ago, and there's a couple things I think people should know. Is that one, the silica gels use different indicator agents, and the ones that there are some safety issues with, like there's a material called cobalt chloride 2, or with some of these. So it's potentially beneficial to find ones that they basically start orange and then turn a dark green, as opposed to the blue ones. So you might look into that. There's some potential health issues. There's two other options too. I use these 750-gram canisters, which is it's about 20 times more silica gel than is normally in the small packs. Not in the packs, but there's these little. They look like sardine tins.
Mm-hmm.
So I use the canisters, and those are all rechargeable. You can just recharge, especially if you get the ones that don't have the cobalt chloride. You can just stick them in your oven, take the cap off, stick them in your oven on low heat for like 4 hours, and they recharge. Another thing that you could look at too is for gun safes, people use it's like a little heating element. So it's not actually a desiccant, but it's a heating element, and they use that to keep moisture out of gun safes, and that's not something you have to worry about recharging.
Right. Yeah. So either way, it's the overall point of the Print Whisperers tip for the day is you want to find a solution to dry your filament, keep it dry, not just to dry it, but then when you store it to keep that moisture off, because otherwise you're going to run into all kinds of issues. I see time and time again people posting online having a lot of problems, and you can pretty much clearly see that their filament isn't like they have all the right settings right, but they can't get their filament they can't get their prints pretty, and they're wondering why. And it looks like a lot of times to me that there's moisture in their material.
Yeah, I'll chime in and say I totally agree with Chris. I have that issue as well, so I'm probably going to look into something like this. I've got a filing cabinet that I use to store my materials, so something like this might be perfect for that. The other thing too, Chris, and we've talked about it before, environment chambers. I find myself now, because I've converted half my garage into my my print studio, and garages don't have the insulation that your house does. So I find myself now using heaters in order to create a better environment that I can print in. And even in our moderate temperature here, it still can get down to 40 or most, I shouldn't say 40, about 50 degrees, which I find just a 10-degree difference between 50 and 60 seems to make a difference. It's less brittle. So I'm really going to be looking at, what is it, Matter? I can't think of the name now. Matter Hacker. They've got some environment chambers. I may be looking into something like that.
Definitely.
For my MakerGear M2.
Definitely a good idea.
And that's another cool thing about the FlashForward. That's a fully self-contained printer, which is one of the reasons I was looking into that. Okay. Well, thank you, the Print Whisperer. Another great tip. So I'm going to move on to. I'm really excited about this and Stata. It's probably one of the reasons. If I've got bloodshot eyes, there's a reason for it. I stayed up late because, I don't know, this is something, Chris, do you remember when I first started, I wanted to get into, and I don't want to use the word fetus, but using ultrasound to, they have the 3D and 4D ultrasounds, but it's been a hard nut to crack to take those 3D images that come from, especially the GE ultrasounds, which is most of the market, and create tangible objects. And I have been doing some searching and scouring on the internet for, gosh, off and on for a year, and it really has been a dead end. Very proprietary on GE's part. But I just found the other day, and I'm going to bounce to it, this site. You can get their program called the 4D View Downloads program, and it's supposed to work in an environment, an enterprise or a medical facility where it goes into a, what do you want to call it, a medical records thing, a PACS system. So it's not really made for you and I. However, somebody provided a link to the demo program, which is good for 60 days. Well, even then, it's not a great program because even though it can export DICOMs, and I'll bring up a little image. This is what it looks like. So if you see, you've got your standard sagittal, what do you call it? Geez, your anterior and geez, can't even remember.
Is the one in the bottom right? Is he signing his model release or something?
Well, we're going to get to that, yeah. But essentially, one of the cool things about the newer ultrasonic process that you can create 3D models, but you don't have a standard 3D viewer. It doesn't come with it, or you don't have access to these type of tools, and it's a separate package that you have to buy along with it, and I don't know what the pricing is of it. And again, it's proprietary. I don't know if they use encryption, but nobody has come out with an open source tool to be able to take the files that come out of this thing and use them. But like I said, somebody put up a link. I grabbed it. I was able to bring it in. And sure enough, I can view, and like I said, this is a screen capture. But the problem is you still can't do anything with it because even though it's got an export tool for DICOM, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do a save as a DICOM. It goes out to a supposedly an Ethernet location where you would put things in a PACS DICOM environment. Well, I went through all the directories, and it said something like spooled. So I'm thinking, wow, do we have a spooled file? And sure enough, there was the DICOM file. So I was able to go through the directories, find it, and then using, and that's why I called this, GE, a little help with the GE mixer and Mangoes, and I'll bounce back to the screen. There's a product out there called Mango. So if you're still looking and doing CT scan analysis and creating volumes, this might be the product to work with. The sad thing is it works off of Java. Java is not the best tool for security. I use it for some of the development I did in some of my classes before, so I still had the application. They also have a web-based version and also an iMango, which you can use on your iPad. But what you can do is you can bring in a DICOM and create a volume from it, which is what I did, and I'll bring that up in a moment. But you can't take this file. It doesn't create an STL file. It creates a VDK, which you then have to bring into my little favorite, Slicer, which we talked about before. And Slicer allows me, 3D Slicer, to convert that into an STL file. So using my other little product, and that's why I called it Mixer, I brought up Mesh Mixer, and voila, here's my STL of it. Now notice that it's a little funky and has little ripples in it, but if you look back at the original image, which I'll jump back to, I can't zoom in on it, but notice the actual 2D images have a lot of noise in it. So what did I do with it? I'll leave this up here for a second and go back. I'll go back to it now. I will actually bring in the file that I was working with. So give me a middle moment. Drop down. And this is and if this doesn't come up, come on. There we go. So this is what
You made a baby keychain, a fetus keychain.
Yeah, I did, but for some reason,
He's doing the fist pump and everything.
Yeah, I don't know why it's ghosted now. darn it, everything. But there you go. So, so this is what my goal was. So I can put this up on Shapeway and have it printed out in gold or silver. And so, you know, any lucky mother out there who wants to wear a little pendant of their ultrasound fetus, it is now possible. And actually, there's somebody in my Facebook who just announced that they're going to have a baby with a little ultrasound. So I said, send them my way. And now I actually have a resource to do it. So, again, other than the GE product, which you can get for a 60-day demo, and then if you put it in a virtualized environment, you just recycle that 60 days. Wait, I didn't say that. I don't know what the price of it is, but when I tried to get the demo the legitimate way, I found out that that you needed to have an actual ultrasonic scanner, which I don't have. So, but I do know somebody that has one. So we'll see what the pricing is. More than likely, it's not a cheap product. Normally, medical software is not. But I'll keep looking out for an open source product. But now that I know that there is a workflow, if you know somebody who has just done an A3D, all they need is a .vol file that comes out of it, and I'll be able to do this. Kind of cool. All right, well, that's the digital toolbox. If anybody else out there would like to know more about this, there will be links in the show notes. And let's see, we'll move on to products of the week. Chris, you got an unboxing for us, don't you?
Well, I have a box, but my printer is actually going right now. Here, let me go grab this box.
Well, I did say faux unboxing. But if you remember, we started out the show with the Taz talking to us.
What's that?
Yeah, I said we started out the show with the Taz the Taz Mini box talking to us.
The Taz Mini box, LulzBot Mini. Got it in the mail on Monday, and came out of Colorado, right from Aleph Objects, and unboxed it, and I kid you not, 5 minutes later was printing on it. That's how easy it was. There was absolutely nothing to assemble, nothing to calibrate. It was take it out of the box, put it on the desk. They had I think it was about a 10-step instruction thing. Here's how to install the software. Super well-written instructions, really great little instruction booklet. I'm using Cura as the LulzBot edition of Cura, and it is phenomenal. It just works perfect all the time. I've been just struggling like crazy with all kinds of my different printers, trying to get up and running with nylon in a repeatable way. And one of the things about nylon is it's really finicky in the way that your Z height. So when you're switching from material to material, nylon might need to be at a slightly different height or just the right height compared to ABS, and there's like that little bit of wiggle room in there, down to.
Well, what would you suggest for nylon for your gap?
So that's the beauty of this is the LulzBot takes care of it all because it has auto bed leveling built in on all four corners. And then it wipes the tip, so you've got a super clean tip to start your print. It's got that new nice hexagon hot end by LulzBot, which everybody's ranting and raving about. So I put nylon on there, maybe like my third print, and I just print it away, and I'm sending samples to customers that have been requesting nylon for months, and I've been saying, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, and then I'll get nylon, I'll start printing with it, but then repeatability becomes an issue because your machine will maybe go off calibration a little bit over time, or your head will have an issue, whereas the LulzBot Mini auto calibrates every time, so you don't run into these same issues, and it's just a really, really great little printer. I'm having a lot of fun with it and pretty much printing on it 24/7. And the Taz, like I said, the Taz 4 has been a really great printer for me as well. And now I switched over to the Simplify 3D and have it really dialed in and just doing some great prints on both those printers.
So where do you have your Taz Mini? Is that sitting next to you?
No, the Taz Mini's actually in my back room, kind
You
of
have to get your
sitting.
remote camera so that you can like take it with you and give us tours.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and I could go and show off what it's printing right now. I've just
So
been
you-
printing all kinds of little test prints, like mostly components for because my largest client base, or I would say my kind of my most steady customer is the customer that requires me to do short run productions. So parts where they don't they know they're going to change them. They want to get the parts out there. They want to sell parts, maybe at a premium for people that need them. A lot of times it's for discontinued parts. I do a lot of like VW parts because for VW vans and stuff.
Yeah, we'll talk about that really quick in a moment.
And so in a lot of these, I do a lot of short run productions in my line of work. You know, it's not all prototypes. It's not all inventions. A lot of it is short run productions. And so this new LulzBot opens up a whole other can of worms for me, because when I'm able to print nylon now, and a lot of these customers, they want nylon because ABS is great in a lot of applications, but then in some it's not so great. You know, it's not very chemically resistant. It's not quite as durable. The strength of it, you know, especially if you're going to be wrenching on it, you're going to be putting bolts through it. It's not the best. It's not ideal. Whereas nylon is just bulletproof all the way around. You know, it's got a better layer adhesion. So when you pull out a nylon part, there's no way you could break a nylon part. It's just, this stuff is so strong. And it's mostly because it has more flexure. You can actually flex it. It's got more give.
Yeah,
It's
I
more
noticed that
impact
when I was
resistant.
printing.
Yeah.
All right,
so
well, I told Brad, because he wrote me and said, well, do I have to say something positive about the Taz Mini? And I said, no. We're a show that tells the honest truth, and I know Chris loves his. Brad, sounds like you had some bad experiences.
No. I feel like I'm like the negative. Like Brad comes on, it's like you ever seen Saturday Night Live Debbie Downer? No, brother. You
We'll
know,
call you
yeah.
Eeyore.
Yeah. No, that was my
disappointing
favorite.
Brad.
I just saw a kitten with AIDS.
Yeah. I heard
So
feline
heavy
All
AIDS
right,
is
Brad.
really taking over.
Stay on topic.
All right.
So,
I will preface this with, I think LulzBot is a fantastic company, and their documentation is second to none. Sort of their vision and their you know, how genuine they are with the open source movement is to be commended, and I have nothing but praise for them. I have been playing with the Mini for maybe 2 weeks. I think the last time I was on, I caught you when we weren't live, and I showed you the Mini sort of on the
Right.
side there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's built pretty impressively. The metal frame is great. It uses the legit IGUS cable chain, which is awesome. The hot end, I have nothing but positive things about. It's actually made by Rep Discount.
All right, we'll get to the negatives.
One thing that's funny is you can actually run 175 in that 3mm hot end, and it'll print fine, which is kind of funny. The negatives, I just think it's a dated design that prints okay. Like, you know, it uses IGUS bushings on all of the axes. I'm assuming to reduce some of the noise, although it's probably the noisiest printer I've ever used, and I don't know that IGUS versus the LM8 you use would have really made much of a difference. So it's something that, you know, you kind of need to keep an eye on, because those IGUS bushings will loosen up over time, so you got to keep cinching them down. But I mean, you could replace them easily with LM8Us if you wanted to. You'd need to replace the rails. I mean, they didn't save any money. I mean, their bill of materials is all available, and you could tell, like, you know, they spent just as much money on the rods they bought and the bushings that they bought as they would have with, you know, a nice rod and a bearing. So it wasn't like a cost thing. I mean, clearly they're doing it for, you know, because they want to. I just found I printed. The prints just, it reminds me of it's just not where we are now. I don't know,
I think for me, it's a great printer if you're going to be printing like 0.2 millimeter and above. You know what I mean? So it's not going to be your finest resolution, even though I had amazing results with high impact polystyrene. The material they basically are highly recommending for printing, which I had zero experience with, but I had a couple reels of it from Matter Hackers sitting on my shelf, basically collecting dust. I threw that in the new LulzBot Mini with their recommended settings, and I cannot believe how good the results are.
It prints really well. It's a very weak material, though.
Right. So, but if you're looking for strength, then I have ABS running on it right now, and it prints really, really great in ABS.
The important point, Brad, is that this is not an expensive printer, and you can print so many different materials with it. I mean, what else is in this price range that can do that?
It's a $1,350 printer. I wouldn't call that.
Yeah, but what else in $1,350 can you print nylon with, or actually because it's a full metal hot end, right?
Yeah, you could buy a kit printer. You could put one together. So you could go with something like the Rostock Max or something like that if you're trying to save money. But yeah, for an assembled kit or for an assembled printer, $1,350 with all the features that it has, I didn't find anything that could beat it, really.
No, I would still. I'm saying I would still recommend it to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what else? What would you recommend for $1,300 that does everything that this thing does?
Probably an Affinia or an Up.
Well, the Up has yeah. But the no, I mean the Up can't print in this variety of materials.
I mean, it can print. It doesn't do PLA very well.
Well, and so some of the and like Brad was saying, one of the things I really do like about Aleph Objects or LulzBot is that their documentation is crazy, and they even put their production docs for future printers right on their website as they revise them. So like you can see the pipeline for the next TAS, the TAS 6 or whatever it is it's going to be. They're calling it the Cowrie. They put the SolidWorks files right there. I downloaded them the other day so that I could scope out, okay, they're going to put the auto bed leveling feature. They're going to put the cable management system that they have on the LulzBot Mini. I think what they were doing with the LulzBot Mini is they're testing out kind of some of the new features so that they can roll them onto the big brother, the TAS. So, which we've already seen with the all-metal hot end that came on the TAS 5. They just unveiled that about a month ago, right? And but some of the other features that are on that, like the auto bed leveling feature, I just don't see why all the other printers out there do not have that. It just makes
there is an argument against it, and
against the auto bed leveling.
Yeah, against the auto bed leveling, and that has to do with your Z resolution. So it's like if there's some good stuff out there by who is there's a sort of a big guy in the RipRap community, and I think he's one of the moderators of the Google group. And when you introduce auto leveling, you start introducing a lot of like micro-stepping error into your print. So it's like there's nothing better than a leveled bed. In the sense that you end up with these weird artifacts as like in your print that have to do with the fact that your Z is constantly moving, and it can't move like continuously. Like you're still limited to your micro-step resolution. So it's not an end-all be-all. There are negatives to it.
So what you're saying there is that a good analog calibration will, if done properly, will exceed a digital calibration because of obviously the discrete steps that you're involved with your microstepper.
Well, just there are negative consequences to auto bed leveling in your resultant print.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to have to push on. Also, keep in mind that Ultimaker is coming out with their mini version. I do think it's still like close to $2,000 for it.
No, it's the same price as the Mini. Well, actually, it's $1,450.
Okay, so $1,450. That'll be coming out soon. I probably won't be able to get one, but Brad, if you're still in the market for it and you get your hands on one, we'd love to have you do an unboxing here.
No heated bed though, and it is under 5 inches cubed. The print
And
area.
that's for the So, like I said, what else can you get in this price range? All right, I'm going to move on. We've got a few more items to cover. Speaking of all metal hot ends, or close to an all metal hot end, I'm going to bring up. You talked about E3D last week, didn't you, Chris, if I remember correctly? They also are putting out a Light 6 version. The only big difference is that it has a PTFE insert, but the cost is, they have the different pricing here. You can get a Bowden add-on or the standard direct connect. I'm thinking I'm replacing my Castle Clears hot end with this thing here. As the 1.75. It looks like a very clean design. It looks very similar to what the Ultimaker is using. Reasonably priced, so I think I'll go in with this particular device. As you remember, didn't you talk about the E3D V6 last week, Chris?
Yeah, we did.
So this is like the baby brother.
Yeah. So the Light 6 was unveiled last week. We talked about it on our show, which is which they basically are taking the cost of each one of those. They basically just figured out ways to save on machining costs, and they also they implemented. It does have PTFE. It's a PTFE liner on part of the hot end. So, but yeah, the cost is about half the cost. So.
Yeah, and also with half the cost, you get half the capability. I mean, it's only good up to 245 degrees, which is PLA and ABS, whereas the other version, the East or the version 6, is capable up to 400, which means you can print all kinds of materials with it. So yeah, I'm looking at it. The other key thing is that it's smaller. So with a Bowden, especially like my Casa Clear, I think this would work well with it. So I think I'm going to order one. So on that note, I got one more item to talk about. Last week we talked about creating molds, and we both agreed that we should create a positive model and then use molding materials. I just found this, just doing a search. It's Composite mold. I've got some on order. Talk about actually using it next week. But essentially, you put it in the microwave, heat it up, pour it out, then you've got your mold. And they have a little video here. Let's jump right to it. So essentially you pour it in, and then you let it set for, I think, about 4 hours, and then voila. Whoa. But the cool thing about it, it's reusable. So once you get done playing with whatever you're doing, chocolate, ice cubes, whatever, you just throw it back in, chop or cut it up as they show in the video later on, like here. Put it back into the container, warm it up again, and create your next mold. So if you want something fun, the only thing is it's a little pricey at $44, but it is reusable. I think they say up to 35 times. So if you want something to work with, I found that some of the other stuff might, we talked about the two-part putty type stuff, but this might be cool if you want something to get into the crevices. And then I did a Google search, which I put in the show notes. Smooth On Reynolds. These are a lot of people that are big in the business. You can go out there and they've got all kinds of different materials. Again, two-part casting materials that you can get out, silicone base if you're doing food types and other things. So yes, I recommend what Chris mentioned. Create a positive, get a little box, pour it over the positive, however much you want. If you want to create a two-part, you pour half of it, let it cure, then do the other half. So we may do some more on that later on. So there's some more information there. We did the print whisper already. We did the box opening. So one of the items that I put in my show notes, I'm going to cover it real quick. As mentioned, I this week went out to I'm going to run the little slideshow that you can see it. This is a chair from an old late 1800 caboose, not that one, this one here. And this is another caboose that they've already finished restoring. But the reason that I got involved is that, they got like a huge quote on creating a part, which is an armrest for one of the chairs. Let me jump back to it, which was this one here. There we go. This chair here. So the armrest, they only have one of them, but one of the things that I've noticed, and we've talked about it before, and you just mentioned it as well, if you have a product, obviously nobody's making these cabooses now, that you're not going to be able to go out and buy a part for, 3D printing and scanning is a perfect thing, and obviously you can design things, but he got a quote of like $800 to create a part for this. So I'm going to show the part here that he wants. And, I'm a little surprised that from, a CAD design that they would charge him $800 for this. Even from a CAD, design product, that shouldn't take too long at all. Right, Chris? I mean, can you see this here?
Yeah, it just depends on where you're going, what he wants it made out of, what kind of Z height resolution, what his infill is. Yeah,
well,
but
this feels like Bakelite. So obviously, it's pretty structural. This was actually made, what did he say? Gosh, in the 70s. This is a replacement part, but he can't even find the manufacturer anymore. So he's asked me to scan it. And then, Chris, I'm going to come to you. I told him that my good friend in Paso Robles could print this for him. So once I get finished with the scan, he doesn't need to have a CAD component. So I'll clean up the mesh and then I'll send it off to you. And then you can print it. So, I am working with him now. I'm going to actually be scanning the inside of the caboose, one of the images there, so that they can do a little virtual walkthrough. But this is part of the train restoration here in San Luis Obispo County. And there's plenty of this going on. I was hoping to have an architecture who's also doing medical science on today, but she actually will be coming on next week to promote one of the items that I'm going to be bringing up. But she can talk about this as well. So restoration seems to be a big thing for 3D because it allows you to create parts that you can no longer get. Either of you, or actually Brad's left already, you mentioned that you're doing something like that with VWs, and then as I opened up the show, Jay Leno has been using this to help restore his vehicles. Any feedback on it?
yeah, just a lot of it's upcycling or in allowing the service life of many discontinued or obsolete machines to keep going on. It's extending the service life of a lot of mechanics, throughout, because we can, even if the parts are discontinued by the manufacturer, just because a manufacturer deems something obsolete doesn't mean that it's obsolete to you. I mean, I know a lot of people that have either sentimental connection to their, VW van or their Chevy van, or I have a good buddy, he's restoring a Chevy van, and it doesn't matter how much it costs. It's not necessarily practical, because he could probably go buy a brand new van down at the car lot for the same amount of money that he spent tinkering with his van that is basically a clunker. But it doesn't matter. The van has sentimental value. It's a classic. It has historical value. So he's spending the time, the money to restore it and upcycle it. So yeah, this is just kind of continuing that tradition.
Yep, and well, obviously, and because you don't need, I can't say you don't need professionals, you just need different professionals. Sometimes the cost is more affordable, and that's one of the reasons they approached me. And yeah, I see a big market there. As I told you, I've got the URL for virtual toolbox. I'd like to set up something like a part, or actually virtual parts bin, so that somebody can come in and go in like a Thingiverse, but specifically for getting parts and getting either the STLs, more than likely the STLs, and be able to print for particular vehicles. I think there's a big market there. Okay, on to my final item before we get into the events, before we move on. So there is the prototype of my new lens system.
Awesome. Looks great, Mike.
Yeah, so this is using my new Neodi mount Bare Essentials, which attaches directly to the iPad and mounts to it, and my new lens collar that supports the new bayonet lens that they offer, which will be used in support of their new game that we talked about last week. So there's our new lens. The benefits of it, I'm able to actually customize the lens specifically for the sensor instead of using the Fuji lens before, which was, I could say, was just a close approximation. With this particular lens, it is larger, so there won't be any occlusion on the edges like the previous lens. I'm also able to coat it in a material that is infrared sensitive or blocks out visible light, which is more effective as well. And plus the lens design I'm able to work with. So overall, I think it's going to add better scan capability and better scans, although overall a little bit more magnification. Okay, so on to one final item, and I didn't put the link in here because I think it's bandwidth intensive. There is a Medicine X at Stanford that's going around the time of the Maker Faire, and keep that in mind. Maker Faire is coming up on the West Coast in the same time frame. I think it's like May 12th, if I remember correctly, that weekend, whatever that weekend is. Let me look at. No, I apologize. The MedX starts on the 15th. I'm sorry, 14th. The Maker Faire starts that weekend, 15th, 16th, and 17th. The MedX, the reason they're doing it around that same time frame is they're bringing medical X makers, and they've asked me to speak about obviously creating the skull, and my wife will be there as well, talking about experience and taking the maker attitude to our own health system. So it'll be kind of fun. And again, we're going to have Monica from who's heading up this to be on next week to talk about it and more. So anything else? Chris, you want to bring up the link, see if anything else out? Sorry, tongue twisting myself here.
No, I think we pretty much covered it. The 3dprintingforbeginners.com/fairs_events. You can go get more info there about some upcoming events. If you're interested in finding somewhere close to you to find out more about 3D, I know that the AMUG show is coming up. That's an important one. So we'll probably see some stuff come out of that as a result. So let's see, we're in April. Yep, the April 19th through 23rd in Jacksonville, Florida. So in about another week, we'll see the AMUG show, and that one is one to look out for because a lot of the industrial application 3D printing companies, 3D scanning companies are definitely debuting a lot of their technologies, sharing information in form of seminars and symposiums at that show. So if you're interested in learning.
Well, sounds good, Chris. Okay, well, that's about it for our show today. And again, please subscribe if you're a new watcher. We really appreciate it. Plus, I'm going to have out on my website, if you want to donate a little bit to keep this going for us, I'm going to see what I can do. I'm trying to avoid, what irritates me more than anything on these YouTube channels is those commercials that you have to click in order to bypass, which is what I do anyways, and I don't even know what they were trying to sell to me. So I'm trying to avoid that. So if you got a few dollars, I'm not just going to take it. If you go out to my Square store and soon to my PayPal, we're giving out coasters. So if you make a donation, we'll give you out some All Things 3D coasters. They work really well. Here, I've got a few here.
I use mine every day.
Put your drinks on. If you got a table, I know my wife appreciates that I've got these up on the table, my wood table, in order to prevent that notorious ring around the edge of a glass that happens when you have an ice-cooled drink or a hot item. In fact, I've got a table that's sensitive to heat, so these things work out well for me. So again, please subscribe, send us a little money, and we can send you some coasters. All right, Chris, sign us off.
All right, well, thanks everybody for joining us on All Things 3D. Thanks to Brad and was it Natalie?
Yes.
Natalie from Simplify 3D for being guests on our program. Definitely looking forward to learning more about Simplify 3D in the coming weeks. And we will see you next week on All Things 3D.
Bye.